All right. Good evening, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Let me get my screen shared. Let's dive into the market review for the day. All right. So let's see. I'm just gonna go over the daily market recap live for anybody that's out there wanting to go over some charts or review for the day. I'm going to I fill this out and send out a recap every day in the Discord, but going to do this just kind of on the fly tonight. So bear with me as I kind of get settled in here. But if you guys have questions, chart requests, or anything that you want to review, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that. All right, let's get started with some review of some charts. So the first thing I do every day is a little bit about my process. My process kind of starts the night before for the next day. So I kind of view the start of the day as the end of the day in some way, some weird way. And by that, the process kind of starts with actually reviewing what worked for the day. So before I get into S&P, the overall market, I like to consider, what worked today, review the different playbook trades, whether I took them or not, and then log those in a database that I keep for people to keep track of. Helps improve pattern recognition. And then just review the overall market and build a watch list for the next day. So that's a kind of daily routine. And that could get into some of the pre-market prep for anybody that's interested, but for now we'll just stick to this. All right, so playbook trades. We had a lot of catalysts today, so just let's review what we had going on. So A-Lab was a good one. So this was a pretty textbook opening drive trade. We called out for shares today. I stuck with SMCI in the account challenge today, but I actually did manage to catch this one with shares. This was a pretty nice call out, particularly because of the way that it was resetting right into the open. So something that we look for. This is a pretty hot open, but we have trending pre-market structure. Anytime you have trending pre-market structure on a strong move off of earnings, it can often lead to some really nice either give and goes or opening drives. Given how strong this was, is moving a bit more than the implied move, and we're out to new all-time highs. I actually had an extension here at 180, which we tagged. Got a little bit above that, but that ended up being high for the day. What you can look for the opening drive is a little bit of a reset. So that's one way that we look at RSI outside of divergences, which is to see if there's enough of a reset before the open. PLTR yesterday was a good example of being just too hot into the open. It just is better to avoid and wait for that secondary move. But we did get this little check back into the structure and turn off of that. So that's for shares. Where I managed to get long is once we respected this and turned higher. Meta was very similar. We've had a lot of examples this earnings cycle of these little checkbacks at the open into structure that turn higher. That turn is where a really high risk reward entry can be found. And you could also wait for the break of the structure. Just note there's typically a little bit less value, EV, or expected value in the trade at that point. The risk reward here very strong. So this was good. A-Lab opening drive. Cool. All right. We need to put this over here too real quick. I can't type. All right, a couple others. Let's see, Shop was a little tougher. This one is just always does this where we'll get this like pop at the open and then not do much. Very almost acted thin. Like it's just I think very algo traded to be honest. Let's see, that wasn't anything crazy. We're watching this kind of reversal on McDonald's. Didn't really do a whole lot today. AMD was a good one. We had this a little bit, I would say, not ideal structure But the front side move ended up playing out really well. TC actually caught this one with a size today. Excuse me. So shout out to him for catching this. We went over this in the pre-market with basically two opportunities we were focused on. The first would have been if we reclaim this 167.50, we could see a decent push higher. It's been a strong name, so gapping down on earnings report at a very key level. And it also respected the spot a couple of times. So just making it very important and validating the importance of that spot. Got friction here, and nice backtest and turn. And then the secondary opportunity was more of a front side move or rejection. And with this trending pre-market structure that was not perfect, with this bit of a spray higher into 174, which also respected really well. So technicals respecting super well in this. Really, the I would say easy trade was the kind of turn later. So that's like secondary turn. This initial move for best frontside shorts, you typically want to see an immediate move higher. So if we would have saw something like, this push without this wick, pushing up into that level and then turning like this here, that would be like really textbook. And they don't all play out exactly the same, obviously, but this saw a little bit of an attempt to hold. It got slapped down very quickly at this spot from the pre-market structure, and then kind of held and then turned. This turn, if you're kind of waiting, this is where you can get really aggressive, risking prior peaks, looking for a flush into minimally pre-market lows or the next key level, which our key level is 158.80. You can see we tested just below that, ended up holding that spot, and that marked a low for the day. So this was really good. As like a kind of a secondary move, if you caught that flush out. And that's something that you can kind of maintain tight stops, either above the opening print or this turn pivot. So overall, nice risk reward and solid kind of washout. Very simple trade to kind of prior bar, catching that momentum. We did notice that the RSI was getting really bearish, so that can give you some confidence on the pop. So it's very simply here on the 15-minute, you can see how overbought the RSI is getting compared to this prior peak. So we're more overbought compared to when it was higher at this 167.50 test. Just basically, it's just one thing that indicates there's more energy available if price leads. Completely meaningless if price doesn't lead, but if price does, it just lets you know that there is energy stored up for follow through in the move, and that played out really nicely. So it's not a perfect frontside short, but I would classify it as such, or intraday pattern, which for the sake of logging this intraday setup is what I'm going to log it as. See, we had about 3 times RVOL on that. All right, I think there's just a couple more that stood out. Uber, didn't really do anything. This Oscar was actually a nice offsides play, so this was in our watch list this morning. A little bit of an offside move here. We have this red to green move right into the open. This was pretty good. So it's been become a little bit of a cult stock. People, or at least retail, was talking about it a lot. There's some interesting things about it, but overall, honestly, the charts, it's not really that impressive. At least for me, what I look for, not really too interested, to be honest, but people are watching it, so often when that's the case, sometimes you'll get more participation, which can lead to a nice move. And this is a very simple kind of turn here. Once you test it and kind of reclaim this 1332 spot, it can mark your entry, risking opening low. And you're just looking for that to push to the upside. Pretty nice volume in the pre-market, but dissipated really quickly, actually. We'll talk about the market here shortly. Offsides. I could make this a lot quicker by doing that. Oops. There we go. All right. Let's see. Let's see. ANET. ANET was actually pretty good as well. Another opening drive, very similar to ALAB. Similar pre-market structure. Into the open, this reset pretty nicely. That's something that stood out. Had a little bit of a reset. So really through this whole flag was just kind of basing. RSI in the short term was looking pretty good. So it had some energy available into the open. This made an immediate move out of the structure and just trended higher. So that's a very easy opening drive. That's like very textbook. So it's good to see some of these playbook trades from really the onset of 2022 is when I started to really dive into them more. Continue just to play out almost every earnings cycle. We see these plays. They work pretty good in most environments, I would say. Some better than others. And the latter half of 22, early 23, I would say like more front side shorts and stuff worked probably a little bit better than some of the others. But it's also worth noting that when the market is kind of chopping or in a transitionary period, a lot of times you'll see individual names become more in play than the market itself as the market digests, what's going on. All right, so, lots of opportunities. This was a good one. A little bit more technical in a way. I guess you could categorize it as a day two because we had some news yesterday. The volume wasn't great, but Coin, we called this out in the group. I didn't trade it, but it put in an interesting failed breakdown. And it's 294 from memory was sticking out to me because this is exactly where I went long before this big trade started. So I actually started this long at 294 here in June before we had the big run up to the ultimately new highs. So that was committed to memory for me today. And this has made quite the round trip, and maybe getting a little exaggerated in the short term. And so as we're testing this 294 level, I was just like, hey guys, watch for failed breakdown here, and it wasn't pretty. This initial turn, this is where I was calling it out right here, and we actually almost made a new low. In fact, did we? I think we either literally bottom ticked the lows or made a new low by cents, and then that secondary move is what really worked. So not a ton of volume. Coin can be kind of tricky, but just given how big of a key level this is, below a psychological level of 300, and having made such a big move in a short period of time, on a name that was very strong just a couple weeks ago, right? Really super, super strong. So a little bit of a rubber band type of setup. So anyway, just thought I would call that out. It's pretty good. R-Vol, like I said, not the best, but it played really well. Premiums moved quite a lot. So I could classify that as continuation. Breakdown. Normally there's not this many guys, but there's a lot of opportunities to kind of review. It should be close to the end. Apple, I would say Apple's probably one of the best today, along with SMCI. I know, kill me for saying it, but it is what it is. I know shares didn't work very well, but it was a very textbook trade. Our options didn't work well, sorry. Shares worked really well. Lots of plays today, good grief. Okay, so a couple more just to review here. I'll add those to the database. Apple first. So Apple got news that they would be investing $100 billion, I believe it was, in the U.S. Or they told the White House this. And the context here, Spacebank and I were talking about this on stream earlier, and the bigger narrative being built here, if you put it together quick enough in real time, this is one of those trades you can, really make a lot of money on. Just because the weekly is set up for a really strong breakdown, is at a very vulnerable state, and the market has obviously just pulled back a bit, so things are a little bit more volatile, getting a bump up in the VIX, so on and so forth, and we're just kind of we're rejecting pops in a big way early in the week, but we've managed to defend 201.70 really well, and we observed the other day, I think it was yesterday, that the market was kind of pulling back. It was yesterday or before, and Apple was just kind of hanging out, holding. It was very odd, considering how weak Apple was on Friday, right? And So I think the only, Mag 7 name under the 200 day. So, that's a little bit odd. And then you get this news today, right? So this is like a a bit of a stick save, so to speak, where we get this headline, pop up in the pre-market, and get really, really good market participation. Apple doesn't see 3.5 times RVOL very often. In hindsight, probably should have given this much more weight, but that's why you review. Going through the process of review is what helps you identify things in real time faster. So this really just trended higher. We were talking about this as it was going higher and just kind of like, looking for an opportunity for it to set up. Space Monkey did catching a bit of a scalp on this. We just went right direct into this 214.56. So, if you're able to put that big picture narrative on how, this is a significant catalyst, the RVOL is very good, and it's basically a stick save at 201.70 where the stock is like very close to a very big breakdown. Anybody, leaning into the sell side on this is going to be quickly flipping sides. And so and with that, I think it was a very good op. And then now you're getting more of a move after hours. I can't remember what the news was. I literally just read it. Let's just pull it up real quick. There was more news, right? Oh, the tariff exemption. That's what it was. I don't see that on here, but I'm remembering now. So that being exempt from some of the tariffs. So that's a pretty big deal, right? It just so happens to come after. It's like a double catalyst, right? So you don't see Apple get this kind of volume often. The market has been very good. We're gonna talk about the market, I promise, in just a second. Our thesis has been very on point lately, and now this is just really, really pushing. Now we're gonna get up to this 200 day pretty soon. 221 is 200 day. We're at, where are we at in the after hours? I mean, we literally tagged the 200 day, like almost to the cent. All right, so that is what it is. So this will be in play obviously tomorrow. And the one thing, if you struggle with trying to catch some of these opportunities, the way I like to think about it, if things are moving very hot or very quickly, you're not really sure where to enter, that's a good reason not to. If you're unsure, it's a red flag. So what we like to do, though, is just quantify something on the lower time frame. So if you get some kind of consolidation, set up, just wait, right? You don't have to. I mean, you can try to catch some of the momentum if you're managing risk really well, and just like trail the trend or the prior bars. If you're a little late, just respect the fact that you are a little late. But what I like to do is just wait for it to set something up. So, whether this pops through 221, reclaims a 200 day, and say you miss that move, but then it flags for 10 to 15 minutes and then makes a secondary pop to the upside, there's an opportunity there. So there's always going to be another trade. So don't feel FOMO if you miss one. But Apple, super in play. This is going to be high on the watch going forward for the foreseeable couple of sessions at a minimum. So let's see. We have Apple. Just go ahead and do this real quick so I'm not doing it again later. Actually, I already added this. Okay, cool. So I just need to add glorious SMCI, the thorn in my side. I'm joking around. Like, I've had a bit of a tougher week than normal, and and then I trade SMCI today, which I traded shares in the bigger account, and then for the account challenge options, and I'll talk about it here in a sec, but just absolutely crooked move. Let me go ahead and log this real quick while I'm here. Let's see. I think it was 6, yeah. All right, so SMCI, and then we'll talk about the market. Last one. And like I said, if you guys have questions or chart requests, just let me know. I will pay attention to the chat. All right, so SMCI, really straightforward here. So anytime I'm grading a trade, especially with a catalyst, you want to weight the catalyst. If you grade each catalyst out of 10, over time, once you start to see a price response to different catalysts, you start to get pretty good at determining which are, heavier than others. SMCI is very good. It was a double miss on earnings, and it's a stock that has been, beaten up pretty badly. and is starting to make some ground, starting to recover a bit, and then has earnings, and then completely misses a pretty bad earnings and guidance. So just all bad. There's really no good that I saw in the report. The stock gaps down more than what was implied, so that kind of validates the fact that yes, okay, the earnings were bad. And then it just gets this pre-market structure that is trending, which often really sets up a nice opening drive for us. Something to look for with that, to pair with the opening drive, is to see if the pops within the trend get bearish on the RSI. So you can see here this pop, getting really bearish in the short term, and then you also, not insanely bearish on like 30-minute, but it is basically telling you there is energy available to go lower if price leads. So with that, you can just trade the structure. So you big up, down, trending, a little bit of a pop that gets sold, and then you're basically looking to find an entry on the turn lower. The reason I answered very quickly because I didn't want to miss this opportunity. I felt like this could trend lower for quite a while. So I earned fairly quickly off the open. But one of the main reasons for that, outside of just the variables, was this pop. So if this pop didn't happen, I would have likely been much more patient and waited to see if it did and try to catch that front side turn. But this first candle was straight down. And so I was like, okay, this was enough of a reset to give it energy to just go ahead and sell right off the open. That didn't really play out exactly like that. We ultimately did head lower, but this actually ended up holding for a bit and then rejected kind of twice, actually. So this move started out lower, came all the way back up. Didn't quite get to my stop, which was up here at this pre-market pivot. And then we sold back lower, and then this actually came back up a couple times to try and squeeze, and got slapped down by sellers very aggressively. Now, with shares, it's actually something that I was able to add size a little bit on. So, this initial move was a little bit caught, but once I saw, we came up close to my stop, which I actually moved to high a day, because at that point it was like, it's gonna, it can squeeze if it reclaims that. So it's a very simple if then. If it rejects, the energy is lower. So with that, once I saw that sellers gain a lot of control here, I was able to kind of basically double down and keep my stop right here. So my risk didn't really increase too much because of the timing. And then this ended up just trending lower, which I posted my execution on the, what's it called, on X, if you want to check that out. It played out really well. Now, why I was joking about this earlier is these premiums, I definitely, caught some IV inflation, which is to be expected off the open after earnings. I mean, I'm not, crazy to think otherwise. But what is a bit wild to me is that the puts from this point, I got in around $1.10. They settled around $80, about 75 to 90 cents in this range once things kind of chilled out off the open. On this move from all the way, from here to the lows, almost 6% in the underlying on day one, right? On the same day. It's not like, this happened literally an hour and a half, 2 hours into the session. Those premiums barely made new highs, which was just wild to me. But anyway, I digress. I won't belabor that because I've been joking about it all day. So anyway, I made almost 3 times what I was risking on shares to basically break even on options. It's just sometimes it's just things you can't control in the market, and you just have to suck it up and wait for the next best trade. So, but you can focus on solutions as well. So the next time I look to trade SMC, I'll just go in the money for the account challenge. I'll go deep in the money, maybe a couple strikes, treat it like shares, or just trade a little bit of shares straight up and just use less size. All right, that's the last thing for the review. I know it's going a little long on the review session. Let's talk about the market. All right, so overall market, our thesis has been very simple. We talked about this at the start of the week. that you can expect to see noise and chatter pick up about the market and everyone and their brother, and, picking tops and bottoms and all this, that, and the other. But what's pretty straightforward is, 62.90 and 63.36. So once we reclaimed, and backing up just a minute, the market has defended all year long, right? So ever since we saw the capital requirements news on banks, or from with banks, the market has literally just been grinding higher, and every single dip has been bought. And so, can that change at a certain point? I'm sure it will, but I'm not going to try and guess when that's going to be. It'll likely be when maybe the Fed intervenes and does something different than what's the current stance. I'm not a macro expert or anything like that, but at the end of the day, liquidity is what matters. So right now, not anything can happen. That's always my opinion. I try to stay pretty neutral, but with all the noise, I tried to yesterday just make it really simple, and into today as well. And just, very simply put, if 62.90 holds that back test after such a nice recovery off 6200 in a very bullish environment, then we favor the upside. It can get a bit choppy between that and 63.36. And then over 63.36 is a very big reclaim spot that if it holds, it can create a bit of a chase higher into 6400 as people, see this dip and kind of start to get like, okay, we're going to get that 3 to 5% correction. I'm going to finally get some better prices. And then we just shoot higher and they chase, right? It's like, oh crap, I missed the dip. And now it's just going right back higher. It's just the psychology of the market. You see it all the time throughout the years. So right now, and then you have Apple really strong now after some news. So anyways, there's just too much going for the market, in my opinion, to be overly bearish. And I'll watch the market probably sell off like 150 points tomorrow. I'm here for it. I'm here for whatever happens. If we start to trail prior bars, that would be a signal for more downside. So if we break back under the 62.90 area, then hey, I'm here for it. But for now, the trend is up, and we're defending the trend on dips, and so just trade it one level and one day at a time, in my opinion. All right, so that's S&P. If we, I'm not sure what. Let's see where are futures. It should be up with Apple, right? Up 15 here. Wonder if J Money is trading this. So overnight watch list from J Money. Short 6400, failed breakdown 63.64. So, I mean, that was about an hour ago. Okay, so he's watching basically this low, potential failed breakdown. And then if we get a move into 6400, possible rejection there. Cool. So, yeah, futures up a bit, 15 points. I'll see if that holds into the morning. As far as earnings go, today is Wednesday. We had APP, IonQ, SMY. All right, so nothing, or SYM, not anything too crazy. So yeah, let's see what the market does right now. It's just kind of business as usual with a bit of a pickup in volatility. We should check out the landscape going into tomorrow. Do I have that yet? Oh, I don't have that yet. Never mind. Just kidding. We have been seeing some lighter gamma environments, which has created more freedom to move in price. So you're seeing the VIX pick up as well. All right, that's all we got for the market. I'll write this note before. I won't make you guys watch me write it. Let's get a watch list together for tomorrow. A couple of notes here from Space Monkey. So obviously Apple for sure. Tesla was a really nice move today. So you've been hearing me talk about Tesla more and more. It's funny because I've been dogging on the stock for a long time, just being very difficult to trade, nothing more. We have this weekly wedge that is, that put in a failed breakdown at 300. So I basically have kept this very simple. As long as we defend 300, we favor pushing toward the upper part of this wedge. And if the market holds and this starts to break out of this wedge, we all know what Tesla is capable of. And there's a lot, I really like some of what's going on, honestly. Elon sort of tampered down expectations for a couple quarters. We had a bit of a sell from that. I like the fact that he's lowered expectations. And, under promising and over delivering is paired with Tesla stock is kind of a super interesting scenario. So we'll see if how that plays out for the next couple of quarters, obviously. But um, if this starts going, guys, I think this could be one of the best trades of the year. I'm not trying to predict the future. I just, this is a cult stock. It has a history of really strong moves, gamma squeezes, and so on and so forth. And then just on top of the fact that there's a lot of tailwinds in terms of what they're working on and shaping, people's perspective of what the company really is. So I'm not a huge long-term guy. You won't hear me talk a whole lot about stuff like that, but just technically here, if this starts to break to the upside, watch out. I think 400 is a very likely scenario. So anyway, I am in some swings, in some 350s for next week. I've been holding those actually for a while. So we'll see if they can play out. Tomorrow, more specifically, would be day 2. Big picture, we still have the 200-day to reclaim. So you want to see this close the week above 325 to look better. Ultimately, it is just in a range at the moment in this wedge. So if it can reclaim the 200-day and that 325 resistance, that would be a positive development for the week. And then you can kind of start to look at 335, 350 above. So I'm just going to put over 322 tomorrow is worth watching. That's the 200-day. Look for a reaction there. Google is very interesting. So it's not been the easiest name to trade specifically. It's really made up a lot of ground as we kind of anticipated, but not been the easiest trade. That being said, with the market recovering and a potential chase being put on here, I like the way that this is super defined at 198. So really watch this 198. We have 3 tests there. Dips have been supported really nicely. Not a whole lot of volume as this floats higher, so maybe we'll especially watch for a catalyst, right? Like we saw Apple get some catalyst today. If this happened to get paired with a catalyst, that would be like an A+ op through 198, minimally targeting 200, just because that 200 would be such a fast magnet. So watch that. I would say really good if it gets news, and then just a pretty straightforward routine technical trade above 198 otherwise. PLTR, this was actually a really good day 2. It should be on our list for review. I don't know why I forgot that there's so many playbook trades today. It's kind of insane. There was an earlier entry on this. Space Monkey caught this one today once it kind of broke this consolidation. Really nice day 2 op. This stock has just been kind of insane. People have been short since 100, saying how overvalued it was, and we're almost at 200. So if that doesn't tell you something, then I don't know what. Mostly as a active trader, right? Like obviously, big picture people and bigger time frame. Everyone's got different time horizons, right? So I take comments like that with a grain of salt. But as a trader, this was a nice day 2. Off the open was good as well. So many ops today. It's kind of wild. Continuation. Anyway, so going into tomorrow, just look for more continuation, honestly. The reason being the strongest stock in the market, really. This could start to try and push toward that 200. Maybe you get a bit of an exhaustion gap if we get more news, right, and just completely blow shorts out of the water. I'll be watching for that for reversion. Otherwise, you just simply can't trade this to the downside. It needs to see some kind of blow off top or exhaustion gap, something like that to signal the downside. Until then, you can't really, in my opinion, be focused on the downside. You just have to keep trading it higher. I honestly feel like I stink at trading this name for whatever reason. It just doesn't usually make a lot of sense to me. I've had some nice trades on it. The prior all-time high trade over 135 was really good. And then even today, like this 5 bar, really straightforward into price discovery. That being said, keep an eye on it. Let's see where it's at tomorrow. Let's see, over prior day high. Netflix. So Netflix put in a nice felt breakdown. This was just kind of getting tired. The trend was having trouble getting momentum, and I think a lot of that has to do with the strong the market's been, right? So, we had a nice breakdown yesterday, and then it just almost had this kind of kicking look to it today. So essentially on the daily, put in a bit of a failed breakdown, a reclaim at 1150. I would watch for day two on this. Netflix is name that we've been talking a lot about. It's basically pulled back. Let's see what we ended up at, 15%. So once we started this trade to the downside after earnings, we're just looking anywhere between 10 to 20% pullback would be totally healthy, but tradable to the downside, just because the stock has been up, 65% this year, and it's just been so resilient, right? So this was a pretty good short, nice thesis. Now it's like, okay, a bit of a save, right, from buyers today. One day is not a trend, so you want to see, does tomorrow reclaim and hold above that prior day high and start to push toward 1200? If so, that's a possible trade. And then over 1200 starts to get very interesting for move back to 1230. All right, Oklo has been quite the stock. Kind of a powerhouse of late. This is just trending, right? So again, with the same conversation with PLTR, when you're looking for a reversion trade on something very hot, there's got to be some clear signals, and this just is not really giving them. Every single catalyst, whether it's negative or not, gets bought up, and it's been an easier name to buy off dips for sure compared to breakouts. That being said, we're only 15 points now from triple digits, so 100 would be an obvious magnet if this continues. So what I'm looking at here is if we see this kind of check back hold from today, which had a nice close, nice little inside day. If you start to break over 85, watching for a breakout trade higher, that could lead to a multi-day trade to 100. So really just watching over 85 tomorrow. All right, Walmart finally broke out. This was another, we could add this to the trade review as well. So this was quite the breakout. I think a lot of participation, you could say. It's a very institutional move. Finally got through this consolidation. I think a lot of people have been watching this 100, so congrats if you caught that one today. Ended up playing out really, really well, as you can see. So tomorrow would be a day two setup, so watching for continuation over the prior day high. If you get a push over this 103.36, you can target this prior all-time high at 105.30. 103.36. All right, so that's what we got there. Let's see if there's anything else that stands out to me. If you guys have questions, let me know in the chat. Or any setups that you're wanting to check out. All right. Baba is interesting today. So I'm in a swing for January on this. It's looking okay. Nice little breakout of this pattern. Let's see if we can get some follow through tomorrow. This is a pretty cute spot at 121.34. I think that's worth watching. I've only entered about a third of the size that I wanted in this swing trade, so I was waiting for this to kind of look a little better. I'd rather add a little bit into strength versus weakness. So I'll consider adding tomorrow. Let's see how it reacts on dips. All right. Looking to wrap it up here shortly. Charter, by the way, I got out. We got very close to that prior daily bar trail I've been talking about, and then it actually just held the pattern. So we might get a bit of a gap before this bottom. So I would consider adding another roll. I'll watch it tomorrow. The daily bar trail method is still very much alive. I literally got very close to timing that perfectly, but it has been just a really awesome trade. Reddit is interesting. Reddit's actually up after hours as well, a little bit here. So Reddit, really nice recovery today off of that 200. Closed on the high. So this one's, very, very, very strong. Closed on today's high and up a little bit, like I said. I would watch for a push up to these all-time highs. That would be the next target. 220 before that. So 220, 230 above. Would not be surprised to see a bit of a gap up to 220, honestly, just given how strong this is. So it might have a bit of a digestion day before trying to set up some kind of all-time high test. All right. Any other chart requests? Let me know. Gonna do a quick scan. We talked about this yesterday on Amazon. Really nice hold at 212 from it back to 220. We pushed through that. Nvidia watch 180. Meta could get interesting over 780, 785. You see that kind of delayed, sneaky move to 800. Microsoft is just such a good exhaustion gap play. I'm kind of upset I didn't trade that. Nice hold at 158.80 on AMD. Possible day 2 above today's high. Google, we talked about. Netflix, we talked about. All right, if there's no other questions, I'm going to wrap it up here. Send out the recap to everybody in the room. If you have any questions, as always, my DMs are open, whether it's on X or in Discord. So have a great rest of your night, everybody. We'll see you in the room tomorrow morning at 8:50 a.m. Have a good night. See ya.